it is blast-off time. Barry, you comfortable there, or you wanna sit at the table? It doesn't,
I'm
whatever
fine.
you
I
prefer.
think we can see each other,
Okay.
it's fine, right?
So why don't we get started? If you'd like to tell us anything, well, hold on, Ben isn't here. I assume Eric is coming since,
He brought the owl earlier today.
okay,
So.
can I, how do I do this? If Eric comes and Rich will just be appointed.
We'll just be appointed
Okay.
for it, and then Eric will have
Okay,
to
so
sit out until.
you're appointed for Eric.
Okay. All right.
And is Rich Mengy with us?
Rich is right here with us.
Hey, Rich.
Let me turn up the volume just a little bit.
Can you see us all?
You should be able to see, when you talk, well, he'll see you in the panorama, but then you'll get on the big screen when you talk.
Can you see most of the people?
I can.
Hi,
All I can
Rich.
see
Hey, Rich.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
We miss you.
And you, David.
Yeah, I see Rich Brown is not showing up on the screen, but he's being too quiet.
All right, Rich Brown, you are appointed for Eric. So we have a board of 4, if that's acceptable to you.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So please, go ahead.
Well, I guess first, an apology and an explanation in not getting the mylar in time. The approval was last year, getting the contractor and locating the site for a test pit took some time. Winter came around, and as I noted in my letter, it was just a challenge to get somebody out there all spring. And then it took time to get the survey with all the final conditions put on. It is here tonight. We regret, we had hoped it would have happened sooner, but circumstances, especially under COVID, just worked against us to get it here. But it is done, it's complete, all the conditions are on the plan, and we ask your understanding and to sign the plats.
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak for myself, I don't think it's a problem. We had a similar case with our colleague here, and
Actually,
we waived primarily on the basis that it was, it's been a rough year all around with COVID and associated issues. So I don't, does anybody have a problem waiving? And you know the statute or whatever that we're waiving it under?
Yeah, it's,
Hello, Eric.
I think
Thank you for getting
I have it
the
on
owl.
Oh, you're welcome.
yeah.
Are we allowed to zoom in now we have that or not?
No, very few people. We still have to have.
We need a quorum, but
We need a quorum
we
here.
could, well, let's save that for another time. You know the
Yeah, I'm
RSA,
looking.
we can do that under. or do
It's
you
actually
have it?
the planning board, and it takes a minute, I can
I
find.
know
it.
when we did it with Rich, that we had a specific,
Yeah, it
so
is.
you might be able to just look at those minutes.
Like I'm looking, I think your letter, you referenced it also.
Or I can just say,
Section 315 of the Lyme,
Yeah, that's exactly it.
okay,
315 of the,
right,
Lyme ordinance.
okay.
Actually, the subdivision regs.
yes.
Good. So, under 315 of the subdivision regs, I'd like to make a motion that the board waive the timing of the mylars due to COVID and associated problems. Is there, under whatever that RSA was, or whatever that.
Subdivision, 315 of the subdivision
315
regulations.
subdivision. Is there a second? Vicky is the second. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Or maybe I should abstain, so it was actually.
Yeah, Rich is sitting for you. So, yeah, you're done.
Thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Barry. If I can just have John sign it, you can take it with you and get
Yeah,
it
that would be
recorded.
great, we anxious to get it recorded, thank you.
Do I need a particular pen or?
Yes, you need a particular pen. that will write on the Mylar. There you go, there is a particular pen.
This is the particular pen?
To make him sign a lot of times.
Yes.
I heard about that.
Right there.
So you only need
So any-
one, right?
Well, there are two plans, so there's
So-
probably multiple copies. You
What
keep
is
some,
it?
we'll
Can I
record
get-
one.
it's
Okay.
10 for October?
Yep, 10/14.
Like, you don't do the recording, you let people.
I have them do it because our registrar is so particular about getting payment and the way they get it, that it is just too much of a,
You can set up an account.
they won't do the recording of the,
Okay,
or they won't do everything
so
off our account.
how many of
Well,
these
they
am I?
do it for the town of Hanover,
They do?
so.
Could you pull that, Rich?
I'll check again because it is, it'd be
Yeah,
nice.
just these two?
Nope, all the way through,
All the way
everything.
through?
We just send notices of action, deeds, whatever.
Yep, those, it's the plans that they,
And we send up the plans,
Um,
you've got to have a bank check or for the LCHIP.
that's the problem that,
Well, you need to get that from the applicant, and then you can send it up with that LCHIP, bank.
We're going to hand deliver them
Or money
tomorrow.
order.
so.
Yeah, so you've got the money order or the bank
Yeah,
check, or
we-
you might even.
We have an account there, but still, they want separate checks to the LCHIP because
it's just.
if it
it's such a-
bounces, the registry gets stuck and the state takes it out of the county budget, so.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, you guys ought to just take a little nap
You
or
should
something.
put that on the submission list for subdivision, that, bank check or money order is required for recording on mylar. And then what we do is we, front load a, recording fee for the mylar itself into the application fee. And, not many get denied, and not many mylars are produced of projects that are denied, so, it's the applicant's not gonna lose.
All right, we're making
Yeah,
progress.
no, that,
So, long road to Tipperary.
you can hand a pen out for everyone.
Right.
We only have one chair.
Is that legal if you sign it with left hand?
No,
No,
no.
not really, but there are some things that we kind of
We
blind
do.
eye to and.
I missed the actual conversation, which took 4 minutes, and it's taken 4 minutes to sign.
Whoa.
There it is.
Let's take the Mylars, take those separately because those are leaving right now.
Okay.
And then the other copies, I keep them.
Oh, so only those
How
are
many
going up?
copies do you think?
I keep two. One goes into our files, one goes to our company that does the tax mapping. And
So what are these extra ones for?
I think they just sent some extras, but we'll keep them and just file them. And
Do you want Barry to take them? I mean, that's,
We have electronic copies, if you want, I'll take them if you don't want them, but we may end up recycling them, but you can, whatever you want.
because there's a lot line adjustment, it'd be nice to put them in both
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
folders,
Yeah.
so having an extra set of copies is not
That's a
going
good idea.
to hurt us, so.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, take care.
You too, stay healthy, keep reading the book.
I will,
that's a long book.
yeah. All right, so let's do the minutes. Why don't we? By the way, I think this week's most valuable player goes to Eric Furstenberg, who got the owl. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
That's really
Is that
fantastic.
really all that, really the most valuable player?
That gets you the most valuable player? Of the week.
So, we can or cannot Zoom using
Okay,
this?
well, this is, I'm officially making this a test tonight. And thank you, Rich, for standing up for, taking one for the team and staying home and so that we could test this out.
Thank you for doing this.
I don't know how well it was gonna work, and so I didn't want to say, yes, we can do Zoom until we,
And you also said you're not gonna be here for the next meeting.
I will not be here for the next meeting either, but
I
that's,
can, if I can use that, I know how to use the owl.
So you can set it up and Vicky.
Yeah, I'll set up the Zoom meeting, it'll automatically start
How
at
do
7 o'clock,
Can you
and,
just send me the sign in, onto the computer, sign into your Zoom, and, that should be it.
and you can just sign in, I assume you don't have to be the host to do the, it's something we should test,
What?
to see if we, the person who is has the owl set up, if they have to be the host, or if they can be any.
I would bet they need to be the host.
I don't know about that, but can I sign in as you on that computer?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the easiest, if you can just send me all the sign-in information, so the one to get into the computer and the one to get into your Zoom account.
Yeah.
And that should be on a calendar.
Yeah, and it'll come up, I'll set it up to be on the meeting.
Yeah.
I will tell you, when I tell you the password, I did not set this password, it was Harvey, and so I do not
That's okay.
take any responsibility for it at all.
I'll destroy the email or whatever you send. But we have the state says we need to have a quorum.
Yeah, we need a
present
quorum
here.
present, which means that the three of us, we could, if people don't wanna come, we can revolve, so that there's less exposure, if people would like less.
I'm happy to be here. It's hardly a long jaunt down here.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's about the jaunt, I think if people are concerned about exposure,
No.
but we're happy to have you here.
Although,
Yeah,
I couldn't always work. I couldn't always be here. I couldn't always sit because I can't make a quorum.
yeah, I don't know how that works.
Yeah, right.
So how does that work if one of the quote-unquote quorum is an alternate?
You have to have a quorum
If
to
they're
have a
in-
meeting.
But is it a quorum of the members, or can an alternate be appointed
You
as a
have to
member?
have a quorum in the room.
But would that include,
If you
so
all-
say it was Vicky, me, and Rich,
Yes.
and I could appoint Rich.
You could appoint Rich, and he would be the quorum,
Yeah,
that would
he's
make the
a-
quorum.
he's
in
a
the room.
Now, would he be the quorum, appointed as a quorum member, or would he then
He would
replace
count-
one of the people?
You would have to replace one of the people,
Okay.
because you
So-
have to have a quorum of
So
members.
that's something for people to keep in mind if they wanna be the voice on the board.
So just to carry this to the silly point,
Yeah.
if Eric, Tim, and Ben were home, and you, Vicky, and I were here,
You would be appointed.
I could not be because everybody's,
No, then you would,
You have to,
we would have to appoint you for one of the members.
one
That's
of
what I
the
was just
members would
getting
have
at.
to
Well,
be,
guys,
You could
so
be
we-
appointed for me, and then I wouldn't be able to vote.
Right.
That's all.
This says here that we can constitute a meeting with a majority of the membership, 3 members and alternates.
But does that,
and alternates.
oh,
And it could be, it says here in our rules of procedure,
mhm.
a minimum of 1 member, so the alternates could take over.
no, but I think this is, that's, our rules of procedure are different than the state's.
Does that mean minimum of one alternate?
It says
Yeah, the
one
state-
member.
There's
Oh,
a,
there's a one member, 2 alternates?
What
the
says
legislature is allowing,
1 member,
for
this
Zoom
is a
members.
member,
Right.
these are
So,
alternates.
does-
This is
does
just
I think it's
one
a
member.
kind of a gray,
It's a gray area.
I
Majority
think-
of the membership.
I don't
All
think
right,
we're
so
gonna get
please try to
arrested, no
come.
matter what we do.
I think
Well, that's what.
basically the courts would be looking at it as, you did your best,
Okay,
and that's,
Yeah.
that's, you're not trying to,
we're not trying to pull a fast one. All right, so anyway,
Mhm.
to that point, if anybody on the board feels like they'd like to take an in-person meeting off, but still participate, they can now do it like Rich Mengy is doing. And we now have the technology for that. Or do we, Rich
Or
Mengy?
Perhaps anybody's traveling.
Yes, we do.
and
Okay.
I'm here.
Perhaps somebody's traveling and wants to. join.
Yeah, exactly, even better, yeah.
Well, we can see what the case.
Vacation gets a little boring,
Yeah, right.
Thursday night, nothing on, yeah.
Okay, anyway, folks, we got the minutes.
Okay.
Who wants to go?
I've got a couple things.
Go ahead.
Item 1, 4th paragraph, perimeter, actually, the whole word is spelled wrong.
Oh, perimeter,
Where?
Yes.
yeah, perimeter, I
Uh,
missed it too.
2 paragraphs
Well-
down,
Burgess is also incorrectly spelled, there's two S's.
Two S's,
Yeah,
oh dear,
okay,
throughout, yeah,
2 S's in Burgess.
yeah,
all right,
Okay.
and that's consistent through them.
yeah.
How does one spell perk? It's
P-
short for
PRC,
percolate.
isn't it?
PERC, yeah.
C.
Okay,
Okay,
so,
then that's,
so then that's 2 paragraphs down. Perk,
Per,
I
PER.
spelled it
yeah.
like you would for coffee,
that's
Per-
right.
Perky,
because it's short for percolate.
Mhm. Going on to the next page, item 3, acceptance of the minutes. It'd be a little easier to understand if the second group of lines said John moved to approve minutes of 9/9/2021.
Ah, yes.
Just, I mean, one could figure out what it said, but it was even easier.
Hmm?
And then the last,
You lost me. I mean, obviously David knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, they're basically, we did 2 sets of minutes, and the
Oh,
first 3
I
lines
see, I see,
refer to the
okay,
first
I got you.
set,
Okay.
and just make it very clear that the second set
Okay.
refers to the second set of minutes, so. I got no problems with that at all.
That's fine.
and then the last thing on the last page, I'm gonna ask that you modify what it says that Rich Brown said. Rich Brown proposed permitting an array size to provide the amount of energy that's used on the property. So strike the words suggested setting limits based on.
Steal your,
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, right. I think that's fine.
I understood totally what David was saying, but if you would like to make it as you were thinking, that's fine.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, so let me know when you're ready. Anybody got anything else?
Yeah.
Tim is in,
I have one.
is on deck. We'll
Minutes.
let him finish,
okay, all right, Tim.
One minuscule typo. On the third page, right after that thing, the one I was just talking about, there were reservation, there should be an S on reservation.
Mhm.
okay. Anybody else? In that case, I'd like to move the minutes as amended by Rich Brown and Tim Cook. Is there a second? Vicky is the second.
And there,
All those in favor? All right, that's unanimous. Oh, and all those opposed? Okay. So a reminder, just let's keep track of where we are. January 31st is the last day to hold the final public hearing. So the last day to post and publish, and incidentally, thank you, Vicky, for this
is
chart.
that helpful?
Yeah, last day to post and publish notice for the, first public hearing on proposed zoning amendments is January 6th. So,
We gotta squeeze one in December.
yeah, we may have to, but maybe we won't. Be that as it may, let's go over, I think everybody has this outline, and I just sent it so that we're working from the same, but anything anybody wants to propose or change, go ahead.
Before we get into the details of this, I'd like to propose a simpler plan
Okay?
than amending the ordinance for next March. I think if we could find a way not to amend the ordinance, we'd save our time to work on other important things. And so the question I asked the board is, why do we need all these definitions? Because I think it's gonna say they're all permitted if it meets the lot coverage requirements. And how is that different from our current policy? I think if I understand the policy today, if somebody comes in to
It's
ask.
very similar.
Yeah, and
But I'll answer your question.
Well-
From my point of view,
Okay,
we are running on a system that is making more assumptions than it should. And this is much more specific. And when people come in or don't come in, but wanna look at how they go about dealing with solar systems on their properties, they're not likely to look at the definition of structure. So I think this is an improvement on the current setup. And as we, at least previous to this, we decided to make this into two different parts. I'm in favor of going ahead with this,
I mean, the first part.
this part, this year.
so the primary reason to add these definitions is so that people that do look to the ordinance to say, can
I'd say
what about solar?
that's a big part of it, and I would say this is not, we haven't voted on this, so maybe there will be other things that will be added to it.
And I also, just from my perspective, having the definition of how to calculate sizes. Right now, there's nothing in the ordinance that gives me guidance.
It's an assumption.
Right, it's an assumption.
Do you feel uncomfortable with that? I mean, have,
I prefer to have something, always have something concrete for when somebody disagrees. Then, it's basically, I have to then say, well, that's my interpretation. If you don't like that, then we'll get you in front of the zoning board and you can discuss it with them. Whereas if it's in the zoning ordinance, it's clear.
Vicky, go ahead.
So why I wanna do something is so that people feel confident about their ability to go ahead and install solar, and just because they've got a disgruntled neighbor who may not like how it looks or whatever, that then they feel confident with investing in the system and not having a tangle with a zoning, appeal or something. So it'd be an appeal of David's administrative decision that would go on and on. So I feel like we need to give people in the community certainty, and that is a way that we can show that we are promoting and encouraging.
I would add that when this came up, solar stuff came up years ago, and when it first came up, we were told that the state was going to be issuing guidelines like they did with the wind stuff and the telecommunication stuff, and that never came about. And I feel like, although it's working, it's foolish not to go ahead and have some, as both Vicky and David said, have something that's legal, clearly legal, and more user-friendly.
So Rich, why, you think we shouldn't because?
I think two things. I'm worried that we'll come up with something that's more restrictive than we mean. Every word we write costs people money. I mean, this is a true fact.
Wait a second, that's not a true fact at
Well,
all.
No, it's not at all.
I mean, that is absolutely not true, demonstrably not true. Every word we write costs people money.
Maybe every sentence we write. Every time,
It's just like in your blog, there was an untrue statement
Yeah, I
there
mean,
that I
Rich,
really had a
yeah,
problem.
I would,
with.
no,
So,
no,
let me finish my point.
No, I wanna say something in response to what you
Okay.
said.
Mhm.
It's inflammatory. It's just inflammatory and it's untrue. And I'm sorry, Rich.
Okay, all
It's
right.
really
Let me-
hard to serve on this board and have somebody else serving on the board making consistently what I consider to be untrue and inflammatory statements. It's so demoralizing.
Let me revise my statement.
Please do.
We must be very, very careful that in writing any changes to the ordinance, that we are not making it any more restrictive than we mean to.
I agree.
And it's.
And I think that that's demonstrably been the case.
um,
What would you point to where that hasn't been the case in this instance?
I think we don't know how it's gonna play out. So.
We don't know, no,
so-
point to me, in support of what you just said, a specific instance where we are making this more restrictive.
So, this is my general take on writing ordinances is that it's very difficult to do. We've seen all along, difficult decisions we make that have ramifications. I'm gonna leave that.
Okay,
I'm gonna say, this is something we need to be very conscious of, and I may,
well, that's
if
a
I see
lot
something-
different, that's a lot different than what you just said. And frankly, I find what you just said so demoralizing as somebody who works really hard on this board, works really hard on the wording, to make it as fair as possible that I can, and I feel the same way about all my colleagues. And I feel when you say that, it is reckless and unfair.
Thank you, John. I disagree with the reckless and unfair. I think a little hyperbole sometimes.
I don't
You
find
know
that
what?
hyperbole.
So let me-
When you do stuff like this and you become like a thought leader and you say stuff like that,
Mhm.
it's a really bad thing.
It's
to reflect
inflammatory.
on any of our regulations. And it leads to a lot of what's going on in this country, which is disrespect for the systems that we have in place. So I would suggest, if you think that there's a better way to regulate land use, that you bring it up here and we talk about it, because you're a member of the planning board.
So,
And if you don't wanna be a member of the planning board and don't wanna work in the system, then go there and we can talk about it as a advocate for something else beside the regulations that we're supposed to take care of, administer, and create.
so Rich, I would just say, from what you said, it sounds like you don't believe in zoning, is that true? Because what you were just saying before, that sort of sounds like what you're saying.
I said
We're
cost
getting
people
pretty,
money.
that's getting pretty far afield from this discussion of
It
the
is.
solar amendment. And so I take all your sentiments under advisement. I will.
Do you? Do you really, or is that just wording? Because we've had a lot of these discussions,
Mhm.
and I frankly don't find that credible, that you're gonna take it under advisement. I think that's just your way of moving on with your particular agenda.
I think we were clear last time that we had discussed a much more complex series
Yes.
of
Mhm.
regulations for solar, and the discussion last time was much to the effect of simplification, and really, all we're trying to do is codify what we've been doing in the past, and give
Mhm.
David a little guidance about lot coverage.
And
I don't see there
give
being much more than
give the
that.
public guidance.
Yes, okay. So that was point one. I said something that was a little hyperbolic,
Yes,
and you're not buying what I'm selling, which is okay.
yes, it is.
And so, the second thing, the second reason I offer this suggestion is, we have a lot of other work to do. And if we could find a way to codify the current set of policies without a zoning amendment, we could save a lot
How
of
would we
time.
do that?
And what I've heard you say is, I heard three pretty strong arguments, which I'm gonna accept. John, you said that, people won't find solar panels in the definition of a structure. That's a good point. David, you had, you don't have any written guidance. We're all nodding our heads and saying, yeah, that's fine. But David doesn't have any written guidance. And Vicki, you said that if it comes neighbor on neighbor, David doesn't, again, have any, we don't have anything. I've offered this.
Well, you know, Rich,
You're not-
I'm just gonna say
Well,
that.
John, let me finish. I have one more
I'm just
sentence.
gonna say that I also find that difficult to digest, because we've said this all along. This isn't something we're saying for the first time. We said this at the beginning. All of these things have been discussed. So I'm sorry, Rich, I don't get it. You know this. You know that we've already said all these things.
And so you have made a cogent point, and I think I would hope these show up in the minutes to say, these are the reasons we want.
We've already said that.
Okay. They're not as clearly stated, and I
Fine.
appreciate the clarity here.
I also don't understand why we've gone through this adoption of this energy chapter and that you wouldn't want to go forward with implementing some of the suggestions that are there. And that's what we're doing.
My very real concern is, I think, Eric, you raised this initially, that the second recommendation is the planning board should be more permissive than, and
We
more
don't-
permissive
This
than
is
what?
zoning
Yes.
is more permissive.
And I would add that we've discussed this already, and this is also, you know, why we have to discuss these things over. This is one part of what we're gonna do.
Mhm.
We already said we're doing the second part, and the second part is clearly gonna be more permissive.
Okay.
And what we established after a lot of time and a lot of discussion, for which you were here for,
Mhm.
was that the system on this area is working. David told us that. We discussed it at length. It's not a mystery, and I don't know, I'm at a loss.
So you were thinking of not doing anything, just leaving it the way it is, not having any definitions, just to keep the zoning the way it is right now?
That would be I was offering that as a suggestion. I've heard three important reasons
Right.
that
Because that
codifying it in the ordinance makes a difference.
Right,
and makes
because it
better.
seems like if we left it the way it is now, it would end up being
Okay.
possibly more restrictive.
So can we move on from this? Because
I'm
you
prepared to
said-
move on, yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. So we have this in front of us. We have established the reasons, again, why we're doing it. We have discussions with Rich about his concerns. He understands now, and I assume agrees with the reasons for going ahead with this. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to look for weaknesses. I'd like to, addressing Rich's concern, if there's, we're making anything tougher in here, let's dig it out. And let's poke holes in this,
Okay.
which is what we should do whenever we write these things up. So I'd welcome comments specifically about how to make this as good an amendment as possible.
I like it because it's shorter.
It's shorter, I like that too.
Yeah.
I had gone through and made a lot of the same edits in substance.
Where do you think it should go? You know, in the, and I'm including David too, where should it go in the ordinance?
Just about uses, so, and it's an accessory use, right?
Right?
So 4.42 has accessory uses, so it would be like D possibly?
Where should what go, because the definitions are going.
No, the definitions are definitions, but when you get into the stuff that starts with number one,
Right.
we say that they're allowed as an accessory use, so, we have a whole section on the detached ADU, and we have one on the, attached ADU, and so then we have one on solar energy systems.
So it would be like, where would we put that?
D.
D, oh, okay.
4.42D, so the new section, and we could call it
Four-
solar energy
four-
systems.
4.42D, solar energy systems.
Right,
And so would we have the definitions right there?
No, the definitions go in the definition section.
Okay, so then we just have 1 and 2?
Well, the whole thing is that, I think assuming it's gonna go into the accessory use section, then we don't have to say it's an accessory use to the principal use on the lot, because isn't that what every
Well, David, what do you
accessory
think?
use is?
I think, putting wording that is similar to the on-site solar energy systems definition, in that saying, basically, you know, a solar energy system is designed to help meet the electrical needs within the limits of the lot. That tells you that the accessory use is, you know, solar for that lot, not being used elsewhere.
So to Rich's point, I wanna take a stand on that. To Rich's point, I think if we use that definition of on-site, I think there is a potential for it to become more restrictive, and I don't think we need it. The only thing we need I think it's, all right, let's let the lot coverage
Govern it.
govern it, right?
Okay,
If-
Yeah, that's
if-
what, I was grabbing something in the
And
Yep.
definitions
it
to,
doesn't- I don't personally don't even care if it's an accessory or principal use. If
wait a
it's,
second, you don't care if it's an accessory or principal use, so.
if I have a lot and I wanna use up all my lot coverage on solar and sell it to my neighbors, why do we wanna prevent that?
You mean only have solar on that lot?
So if you were.
Why are we
if-
letting-
Well, let's go through it. Let's come up with examples. So somebody in the common area decides they wanna cover their lot coverage with, that's okay with you?
They're allowed to right now,
No, I know, but is that okay with you?
yeah,
Okay,
if that's how they wanna use their lot coverage,
okay.
that's fine with me.
They could put a
Yeah, right.
patio, garage, a pool, a tennis court,
Okay.
and so instead, I wanna do solar.
I'd much rather have it be solar than a tennis court.
What if it
Or
was
a pool?
what if it was a solar tennis court?
Well,
Whatever that means.
Okay, so how do you want it?
I don't think we need the on-site, maybe David has a different reason.
Well, I think when we discussed this last time, the point of the on-site solar system was to emphasize that, we had decided last time that in this section, we were going to address the needs of, this wasn't a commercial application. So it was going to address the needs within a lot. So, I mean, I think it does serve a purpose.
Well, my understanding based on last time was we were just gonna not make that distinction and let the existing rules for structures do their magic and not have to make a distinction between commercial and.
Okay, so maybe I'm not remembering correctly, but what I recall is that David asked for us to, that he would be happier and more effective with specific definitions.
right, but I don't see why David, in terms of trying to enforce this,
Yeah,
he's gonna have to know what people's energy use is, and then match that to the, production of the system that they're proposing to install.
why?
I think
Because
all David needs
because
to
otherwise
know-
it's not, I mean, if they're exporting power, then they're having more of a commercial use. So I'm in the, treat it like a structure and don't care
Okay, so
about
how would you,
production.
then how should this be written?
I think on-site definition just doesn't need to be there.
Okay,
So I agree with you on, combining the definitions of SES and, I have to get out your thing, I don't have it with
With
me.
the old one?
That's the super old one.
Sorry.
I mean, the-
I agree in combining the solar collector and solar energy system definitions.
Yes.
Those don't need to be two definitions.
Wait a second, what are you talking about?
Your-
Oh, yeah,
your draft from
okay.
last time.
Yeah.
You combine those two, okay, we should do that. The on-site solar energy system, again, we're not, you know, if we're letting the rules for structures do what they're doing, what they're supposed to do, we don't need to make that distinction, right?
Right, so it all comes down to the size of
It's
the,
just,
Okay.
what, in my sense, was what David really needed was for us to write down how to calculate
Right,
lot coverage.
okay, is that right, David?
Yeah, well, the only other issue is that it becomes that if somebody is using this as a primary use on a lot,
So there's no residence on
there's no
there.
residence,
Yep,
Right?
to me, then that is a primary use.
yes, it is.
Yes.
And so,
We need to add it to the uses.
right, because it is a, you know, I have to categorize that.
Yes.
And I'm gonna, if you're selling electricity, you're manufacturing electricity, that to me is a commercial use, and if it's not allowed in the district,
Yep.
then I can't permit it.
So if we want to
So,
only allow it as an accessory use, we can just allow it as an accessory use and not allow it as a primary.
well,
use.
I think,
Right?
what if somebody wants to have a primary use and they're not selling it, they're just gonna use it for themselves?
They can't, how are they gonna use it for themselves?
Well, if they have a lot adjoining a lot that they live on and they wanna just put a lot of,
That's still
solar on
the
it.
primary use of that lot is solar production.
right, but they're not gonna sell it.
It's still, the primary use of that lot is solar production. It's not an accessory
They
use.
can go to the ZBA,
So-
they can get a lot line adjustment.
They can do a lot
so
line
I just wanna be,
Go to the
be
ZBA for a variance.
be careful with what we're, you know, keep in mind as you're doing this, that we're going to be addressing primary uses.
Right?
So I thought the point was that this was gonna be an accessory use of all along.
Then we wouldn't want to have any primary use. That is fine with me not addressing it. I still think we
That's
should
fine with me
be
too.
able to have it in some districts as a primary use for
Yeah.
a solar farm.
This is just not the vehicle for that.
Right now, we can, once we
Right.
get settled on this, feel comfortable, then, yeah, then we can
Just
think
keep
about
it
it.
accessory.
So we
So,
can only make it an explicit allowed use as an accessory,
Mhm.
and then,
Yep,
right,
then it's clear,
right,
right?
I think so.
Yeah, we could, that's fine.
maybe we'll hear that we should have solar farms when we go to public hearing with this, that, you know, when people hear, you can't have a solar farm on your vacant lot. And people say, no, you know, we really wanna have solar farms.
But we're not excluding solar farms. This is simple, I
If we
mean,
make it
Yeah, we are.
accessory only.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are,
If we make it accessory
Yes, we
only,
are.
wouldn't we?
yes.
okay, so help me with that. So we would,
Yeah.
if we made it an accessory use here,
Yep.
and then we write the second part that says you can have a primary solar use.
This is only the first part, yes.
Well, that's what I keep getting
Yep.
confused about.
Yep.
You know, we said we were gonna do this first part,
Yes, yep,
and if we're gonna conflate the two, then why are we doing it that way?
We're not conflating the two, I don't think we need the on-site solar energy system definition.
Right.
Yes.
We don't need to get into this idea of meeting the needs within a lot, right? We just don't need that, we just let the lot.
Okay,
coverage do it.
yeah,
If
no, I mean, I'm
someone
not,
wants to
I'm
do
not
as much as
arguing
they can.
against that, but I'm having trouble abandoning it as an accessory use.
you're not abandoning it, that's, in, Act 2, we'll do abandoning it as an accessory use.
Yeah, if you wanna keep it only permitted as an accessory use, I'm okay with that for now.
Yeah, my understanding is we're gonna come back and we're gonna address solar farms, we're gonna address
Right.
net metering.
Right, because we have to at some point make it a primary use,
Yes.
otherwise nobody could put a,
We do, and
Oh,
then,
just a minute, Rich, let's make sure we.
Oh,
Maggie, I just had I have some concerns. I like the idea of restricting, or pretty much restricting the use for the generation of power for the primary use of the lot, you know, to support the lot. So therefore, I like that definition. I also am a little bit concerned about the allowable building area. I'm looking at the project that was approved at the last meeting. and that person had a 7.6 acre subdivision. They were allowed, they have a maximum allowed building footprint of 3,000 square feet.
How many?
3,000.
3,000. So, I'm a little bit concerned that, I think that we're wanting to encourage solar. I don't like the idea right now of encouraging it to the point that you can generate a lot of excess power, that's, you know, going into net metering and you're getting credits, so you're actually selling it. But I do think that we need to also, I think we might have an issue there in terms of you know, footprint allowed for solar. I mean, I think we wanna be able to have enough area for solar and for people to be able to, you know, build a house that they want and a garage and those sorts of things. So I guess I'm in support of keeping that definition, and I'm also curious about whether we should actually incentivize people to, you know, increase their building footprint, or allow their building footprint to be increased if they're putting solar on, but not to the extent that they're actually selling power beyond the usage there of the lot. So, sorry for
So
my
Rich,
confused statements.
Rich, just so I'm clear, the lot you're using as an example, 7.1, you're saying they can use up to 3,000 square feet. So if they build a 2,500 square foot house and a 500 square foot garage, then they couldn't put solar on.
Correct.
So that's what
That's
you're
correct.
saying.
Unless it
right.
was on the roof.
Right,
Unless
unless it was on the roof, okay. Well, that
For a new
makes
house, it
sense.
should be on the roof.
So, that's an interesting question. The lot coverage in the rural district is 12%. The footprint is 2%. So I was just about to crank out my calculator here, but did you already do that, Rich?
Well, yeah, I was just looking at what the applicants submitted, and according to their calculations, you know, because of the, you know, the ag soils and the steep slopes and whatnot, their 7.6 acre lot really only amounted to 3.46 acres. And then if you multiply that by the 2% for building footprint, then that's where you get the 3,000 square feet. So, you know, it seems to me that
Yes.
if we're encouraging solar, I'm not saying we should be encouraging other building uses, but if we're encouraging solar, you know, independently mounted solar systems, it seems like we should be maybe addressing that and allowing a little bit more, but not to the
So-
extent that people are selling power for.
Right,
outside use.
originally I had a, special exception in there, to exceed the lot coverage. I ended up taking that out, actually.
I'm not in favor of that at all. I like the idea, but I think it's so elitist and preferential that, you know, if somebody works on cars, so why can't he have a little bigger barn to work on his cars? You know, that would be equivalent to what a person might get for the additional coverage for solar. You know, I just don't like that.
I'm gonna ask a maybe related question. So the footprint comes out just a skosh over 3,000 square feet. I get the same number as you, Rich.
Yep.
The lot coverage is 18,000 square feet, so I've never been quite clear on how footprint and lot coverage relate.
So how would you,
The easiest way I do it is if you consider, footprint is your individual buildings. So, again, let's, take, Lockline Lodge is a good example. You have a bunch of cabins.
Yes,
It's not
sure.
just a good,
Sure, exactly.
so each cabin has a footprint.
Mhm.
Lot coverage is the aggregate of all those footprints.
Okay,
So you would take all the footprints of all the cabins, put that together, and that gives you your lot coverage.
Plus the tennis court,
Plus the ten, well,
Any
the structure.
and the
impermeable,
barn, and
Right.
the.
right. So let me see if I understand it right. So the footprint limitation, the 2% of the lot size, the largest building you can have, in this case, is the 3,000.
Correct,
You could have two 3,000-foot buildings.
yes.
You could have, well, I mean, six.
Six, yeah.
Six, I mean, especially since driveways and parking lots don't count in the rural district.
Right.
So you could have,
Plenty of room for solar.
so then
Yeah,
he's
so
got
there's
plenty
room.
for solar. So I
Yeah.
think,
So we didn't figure that.
Okay, I stand corrected then, I misunderstood
thank you for
the
asking,
difference.
but, yeah,
okay, good.
okay.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
All right, so, getting back to Rich Mengi's,
Use limitation for how big the solar
no,
production could
no,
be?
he said that he liked having the on-site solar energy system definition.
I think a cleaner way to do it, and I appreciate the comment, and I'm on board with the idea that we're talking about accessory uses right now. I think a cleaner way to do it is just to allow it as a permitted accessory use and not as a primary use, if that's what we're talking about. I think getting into the idea of quantifying the energy needs on a property is gonna be,
Well, there's nothing, I mean, I'm not, I can live without this on there, but I don't see there's anything in here as requiring David to do anything. It's simply,
Well, how's he supposed to enforce that provision of the ordinance then?
yeah, designed to help meet the electrical needs.
well, to help meet the electrical needs within the lot, limits of the lot.
I think just help meet electrical needs, period, not putting a
Well, then,
limitation
but
on the
then
lot.
that defeats, anyway,
Does that mean that
it's fine with me to take that out.
The other is like, oh, well, somebody comes in, well, I'm buying an electric car next year, so I really wanna size it up for that, so then what does
Yeah.
David do?
Okay, I get it.
You know,
So
'cause-
let's, well, I can live with taking that out as long as this is defined as an accessory use.
mhm,
Yes.
okay. I wonder too if we can, so, if it's roof mounted, we're not interested in it. David has a good procedure. It doesn't, if
Yeah.
it's roof mounted, it doesn't
We
have
need
any-
to define
Lot.
this Pythagorean, we
Well-
need specific wording for the Pythagorean.
Actually, before we get there, could we combine ground mounted with ground mounted tracking systems? Just to say, the ground mounted energy system as stands, as it is, and then to say a tracker system is deemed to have bump-to-bump lot coverage. And I would say, it's at the average, or I'd say it's at 45 degrees or something like that, because that's where it'll spend most of its time. I think the concern about, you're right, David, it does go horizontal. The big concern that I could think of is that all the rain runs off, but it runs off all the sides equally. So I would just say, great, let's deem it to be 45 degrees or whatever our latitude is.
So how would you write it?
I mean, the technical word that comes to mind is the projection on the horizontal plane.
But will people know what that means?
Well, that's a term of art. I mean,
It's a mathematical term. is
it's a
what it is.
mathematical term.
Okay.
There might be a better word that zoning ordinances use,
All right.
but.
So, all right, what's that phrase?
Projection on the ground.
You could even say a vertical projection onto a horizontal plane.
So, but what's the wording?
45.
Projection.
A vertical projection
Vertical projection.
onto a horizontal plane.
That means
Ooh,
45
yes.
degrees?
And that means straight down,
Yeah, so,
moving straight down. like
So
it-
is it like a shadow being cast
The
if the sun
shadow
was
from the
right
sun's
That's
above
right.
the
Yeah,
head?
but what angle is the?
Well, we still gotta talk about that.
right, so I mean,
I hate the wording, but that's just,
Yeah.
because
so,
it's,
okay.
well, it,
We can have a picture, so you don't have to
right,
describe it.
it becomes,
so-
you know, I'm sitting here and I understand this, you know, because it makes
Right.
perfect good
Yep.
sense to me. Somebody, you know, one of the big problems I encounter with folks is that they start reading the ordinance
Yep,
and they get into it and they get this glossy-eyed look,
Yes.
and they're like, I have no clue what this means.
So, exactly. So
So
what I was gonna suggest
Yeah.
is,
Good graphic.
is that, or ask, is if you'd be willing to take a crack at the definition or the formula, however you wanna put it, that, because you'll be dealing with it. Or would you rather us do the dirty work, or
I'm
that?
gonna, can I just?
So, I think we should talk about the angle first.
Okay,
So, because if we're gonna do it flat, a simple way to do it is just to say, the lot coverage of a tracking SES shall be calculated as the maximum area covered by the array in any of its feasible positions. We don't need to do that.
we don't need what?
So suppose we wanna measure the lot coverage for when the array is flat, right?
Right.
At the maximum,
So
right?
you say use that as the code.
You mean-
You say, the lot coverage of a tracking SES shall be calculated as the maximum area.
Oh, in
covered-
A.
Covered by the
Yeah,
array,
yeah,
in
okay.
any of its feasible positions. And we all know that's flat,
Right,
right?
right. But I thought we were doing the Pythagorean angle thing.
well, that was my
For
suggestion.
the tracking.
And so, you know, I mean, as an alternative, Eric, I would propose, let's just declare 0.707 or 70% of the array,
Of the maximum?
of the panel size. If you tip it up to 45 degrees, it's 70%.
Yeah, okay.
And that's a number, David can
That's
live
an
with
easy
it.
number.
That's a very easy number, very
And
easy to.
people will say, well, where did that come from? And
But I
then you
can
can
then-
explain the
then I-
Pythagorean theorem.
Right.
We're about
So
45.
if we do that, getting back to the point about the two definitions, the two definitions
You're gonna put them together.
are, well, I don't know whether we should put them together.
Yeah.
Should we?
Well,
It's
of
not-
course.
There's one other thing to consider, is there are the pole mounted trackers. There are also ground mounted ones where you can change the angle as
Mhm,
well.
mhm.
Right.
So we haven't.
Well, but it
got
does,
all-
I think it does, because it says unless another part of the system has greater lot coverage. So, for instance, if you have, you know, who knows what people might come up with. You have somebody who builds a platform that's actually larger in lot coverage than the panel, then you need to have, unless another part of the system has greater lot coverage, in which case the greater lot coverage measurement shall be used.
That works.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you know what, knowing what our regulations are, hopefully whoever the company is that's selling them their tracker will take that into account and try to minimize that, you know, in a safe way and a building code compliant way, but, you know, well,
I mean,
why wouldn't they, actually?
yeah, but I mean, I hope that happens, but basically, it's up to the person who's putting in the
Right,
solar.
right.
So, okay, do we want to merge the two definitions? I mean, the reason
Simplify it for sure.
The reason to have them separate is because we're dealing with them separately.
And I'd be quite content to say if it's ground mounted, the lot coverage is 70% of the size of the solar panels. You know how big the solar panels are.
Right, but I'm going from where we
Yeah.
started. Where we started was we were saying that ground-mounted non-trackers were gonna be at their maximum. But we did say that with the trackers, because what I recall is because they act differently, they would get a benefit of the Pythagorean approach. That's the reason why there's a distinction here.
So the non-tracker would be.
The what I recall, the guidance that I took was that ground-mounted solar energy systems that didn't move were gonna be counted at their maximum coverage.
There'd be, but right now, it's just like any other structure.
Right.
It has a,
It's,
if you consider the panel or roof, it has an angle and
so it's
it
at
has a
its
specific footprint that does not
max.
change.
But when you have a moving piece, we were gonna treat it differently.
And that includes the ones that just move. There are the ground mounted ones where you can go out there with a hand crank every month and change the angle. And those are different from the trackers that go like this.
Right. Well, my understanding and my intent was not to address, we spoke specifically about trackers, is what I recall.
Right, so my point is if how do you wanna treat the one where you crank it by hand?
I don't really have a
Does
strong.
that change the angle?
It changes, it
Yes,
doesn't change, it changes the angle, so every month
Right.
you go and you're like, all right, December, I wanted it 50 degrees.
Right.
And, in the summer I wanted it a little bit flatter, and in winter I wanted it a little bit, so you go up every month and,
Right. But it probably
So-
averages out to 45 degrees, right?
Right.
probably.
I,
But if we're saying we're using that one as maximum.
Well, that's what we said, we're not bound to it.
But
so,
the maximum would be the 70, if.
Flat.
Yeah, well, no, maximum, my take on it is you would, take an average of, say 45 degrees, because that's,
You mean with the fixed?
with a fixed, even if you're one that you can adjust the angle, it still has the,
Ability to be flat.
Ability to be flat.
or the ability to be brought down to the lowest angle.
Right.
And so if somebody, whether they can change it or not, if they don't, it, I don't know, to
So-
me, it just seems, you can, somebody could say that I'm gonna prop up my, fixed system with cement blocks every couple of months. Well, no, you'd be amazed at how people try to get around and
yes,
circumvent.
right, so
So-
let's, I'm gonna say, let's say any ground mount, you take the panel size, which you measure by the specs. You come in, they say, it's gonna be this big a panel. David takes 70% of that and says,
For any of them?
for any of them, yes.
And how does everybody feel about
And
it?
then, I'm suggesting this is a simplification.
Yeah, I
It's easy for
understand.
David, it's easy
So-
to say, yeah, it's mostly at 70%,
I would agree with that, because I think that in the big picture, that's gonna be kind of the average, even all these movements, it's all gonna probably somehow average out to around
So
45 degrees.
how do we deal with a case where somebody is bumping up against constraints and a couple square feet matters?
Mhm.
And we're using this simplification for the solar, and they're gonna say,
They have
It's
to get a
not really
special
right.
exception, they might have to get a special exception.
Well, but I just raised that and that wasn't received well.
Well, I think
I
the
think
fact,
if it's fixed, if it really doesn't move, we know what the lot coverage is, right?
Yeah.
If it doesn't move, we know what the lot coverage is.
Right.
David can calculate it, that's easy.
Yeah,
We shouldn't be guessing with that.
well, except, the lot coverage is, what do I wanna say? I'm gonna use a really scientific word here, it's squishy. The 12% number that's in the ordinance is obviously 12.000, it's a fixed number. That number came from, we don't know where, it's been handed down for a long time. If somebody, we just figured out that people can have multiple footprints of solar arrays. So if, whatever the footprint, the maximum footprint on their lot is, they can have multiples of those. And if they are choosing to use up their lot coverage with houses and barns and other structures, then they've used up their lot coverage and they can't have a big solar array.
Mhm.
I don't think we'll have a case where somebody, and, oh, by the way, a 3,000 square foot solar array is one zomping big solar array. You know, I think my number said 350 square feet for an average house. So a 3,000 square foot solar array would be a giant structure. So I don't think we're gonna run into that constraint.
I think the constraint is
Probably
going to
not.
be in the Lyme Common, Lyme Center District. Those are where you have small lots and a lot smaller lot coverage, building footprint.
Well, they can still do roof mounted, so.
They can still do roof mounted.
Yeah, I mean, really, all we're dealing with here are the ground mounted. Everything else is,
But I think if it's fixed, if it's fixed, it's easy to calculate, and that shouldn't be a problem.
okay, but when you say that, how's it being calculated? Even though you can change it?
That's not a fixed one.
Okay,
If
so
you can change it, it's not fixed. If it's
anything that's fixed is easy, yes,
Is
I
easy.
agree.
John, I think we're saying that, let's say the panel is 8 by 10 feet.
Yeah,
So
It's
it's
a
80 square
42-degree
feet.
angle,
80
David can
square
figure it
feet,
out.
so
and
you
it's
take
done.
70%.
so,
of 80
okay,
square feet.
so are we saying that
That's what it is.
applies to any non-fixed? Or to fixed as well?
Both,
Why
The
would,
70%?
yeah.
Would that apply to a roof mounted? I mean,
No, any fixed ground mount, David should calculate the actual.
70%,
coverage.
and
No,
then-
the actual,
Okay,
right, not the 7%, because that's a guess.
okay.
Right.
And I think, I'm getting a
No,
little confused.
70% is an estimate.
Okay, but a minute ago, if I understood, weren't you saying that 70% should apply to everything?
Right.
So I would favor, so let's be clear here, I would favor 70% applying to everything.
that's ground mounted.
What's that?
That's
Everything
ground
that's
mounted.
ground mounted.
Everything ground mounted, because it's very clear how the ordinance works. Oh, this is ground mounted, yup, and it goes like this, or it goes like this, or it just stays there,
If it's a
whatever.
movable array, I'm happy with that.
Yeah,
But if it's fixed and David can calculate it, I don't see why we're doing 7%.
because it's hard to write the words. It's hard to write the
Well,
words.
actually,
Not-
I don't
not
think
for a
that's
fixed
hard at
array,
all.
It's easy.
So,
That's very easy.
generic, are there
And we
any,
do it for roofs, it's no different than a roof.
are there
if
any
it's fixed.
ground mounted solar panels that don't move at all?
Yeah, mine don't.
Really?
Yeah.
So you can't do anything?
Most of them
No.
don't.
I
You
think the
can't
ones at
change it at all?
Crossroads don't
Yeah.
change.
Right, they
No,
don't,
I thought they all moved.
No.
No.
Because how they.
So, okay, so that's part of the reason why we can, it might be advisable to have a distinction, a fixed solar energy collector that is not attached to and is separate from any building on a lot, which, that would be at 100%, is what you're saying.
With the size of the panel.
Yeah.
No, not 100% the size of the panel, because the panel's still at an angle, it's still getting.
Well, you just said it was.
Okay, this is where I'm getting
Yeah,
confused, because then you're back to the 70% that
No,
Rich
I'm
is
not,
talking
because
about.
if the panel is at a different angle, here it's 40%, here it's 80%.
Okay,
So if David can actually calculate the angle, then he can calculate the actual lot coverage.
but,
The problem with the movable ones is it's in different places at different times,
I
and
see
you
what you're
don't
saying.
really know what it
Okay.
is.
Okay, I see.
Okay,
And
so-
then we can say, okay, 70.
right.
Right, but if it's fixed and he can calculate it, we should
Okay.
calculate it. We don't go to all the roofs and say, they're all 12 over 12.
so how do we write that?
Yeah, okay.
How do we write that?
It's,
I'm giving you this challenge because I think it's gonna be hard.
to write it,
Yep.
for a non-movable one,
Yep.
it's the lot coverage. It doesn't really, does it really need to be written?
Yes.
It's the shadow footprint.
The shadow footprint,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
the drip
And
line,
I have no,
right, the
Yeah,
drip
the
line.
drip line, not the shadow, because it depends where the sun is. But the drip,
it'd be a shadow from directly above.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, the same way we calculate roofs and overhangs, we know how to do that,
Yeah.
right?
right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's
I
it.
thought
So calculate as with any other structure.
every panel was movable. I didn't realize there were some that weren't movable at
No.
all.
Okay, but we've established that.
Right.
So I think there needs to be a distinction between fixed and movable or tracking,
Right.
Yeah, I think,
or you might wanna just say adjustable or something.
Adjustable or tracking would be fine.
Yeah,
right?
just to make the distinction, and adjustable or tracking, or variable pitch.
okay,
Um,
so,
You know, those would be calculated at 70% of their actual size. And a fixed solar panel would be calculated,
It's
as
a drip line,
as a drip line. I mean, that to
Yeah,
me
that
is a
makes
good
sense.
term that,
right,
calculus, so that's for the fixed one,
right.
right?
yep,
And then all movable ones are calculated 70% of their square footage.
Because the movable one, you have to make some compromise,
Yep.
right?
Right.
I mean, I'd be happy with
7%,
the
68
movable ones to just calculate what's sitting in the ground. I'll throw that out there, because, you know.
I don't think we're there, David, but yes.
You know, no, I don't think, you know, they're changing direction,
That's why we're just gonna say,
yeah, it's,
fine, right?
All right,
Like
so-
it for the movable one.
So getting back to this thing that's in here, unless another part of the system has greater lot coverage, I think that's important.
Right.
I think it is too.
Yeah, so we better.
Okay, so I think so we're approaching this, we're adding it to as of now, we're talking about adding this to 4.42 as accessory use,
There's a D,
huh?
there's a D, right?
Under D. And we're taking out, it seems like the consensus is to take out the on-site solar system definition. Are we keeping in the solar energy system definition?
Yes.
Yes.
And what about the two, I think we still need to refine these two, the ground-mounted solar energy system that's fixed and the adjustable or tracking one. Those need to be refined to reflect that anything fixed is just at the drip line, right?
Right.
And anything that's adjustable or tracking is 70%, which is just an easier way of saying Pythagorean,
it's an average of where it could be.
where it could be.
For, as a, probably the closest to a mathematician of the bunch, even for the fixed ones, you still use the Pythagorean theorem, so that's not. Using the Pythagorean theorem is not limited to only the moving.
No, that's how I would,
Calculate it.
when I calculate the drip edge, that's how I'm going to exactly
Right, but
calculate
what we're
that.
trying to do is avoid having to put in
Yes.
Pythagorean theory.
Yes, right.
Because most people don't know what that is.
Well, it's just not easy, 70% is easy.
70% that's, yeah.
Okay, so then I think our next step here is for everybody to write the next stage of this to their preference, given, you know, the consensus. I don't mean to reinvent the wheel, but we have a consensus here that where, you know, various people have compromised their preferences, which is how it works, and everybody work from this to write up final or semi-final language
Can I just,
for next time. Yeah,
one comment, as you go through, a couple of times you use the term lot coverage.
yeah,
I would prefer if you change that to footprint. Think of it as a hierarchy. You have, you know, a solar panel has a footprint. That footprint is part of your lot coverage.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
So,
Yep.
saying lot coverage
okay,
yeah.
to me does not, you know, you're kind of drilling down.
okay. So it's in 2A and it's in 2B.
Yep.
Anywhere else? Oh, twice in 2B
It's twice in 2A.
and twice in 2A, yeah.
Yep.
What about in any of the definitions? No? Okay,
So, can we, the ground-mounted tracking solar energy system, a type of GSES where the collector moves or can be manually moved? in
Yes.
order to track
That'd
the
be
sun?
good. Yep,
Where's that?
It's in the fourth italicized, so it's
Ground mounted
the tracking one, yeah.
So ground mounted adjustable or tracking solar system?
I mean, I'm happy to call it a tracking system or movable system, either way.
Well,
But-
movable is, that means like,
You
oh, I
pick it
could
up.
pick it up and moved it
Yeah.
over here.
Yes, right.
No, I mean, a tracking,
Right.
the tracking tracks the sun.
Tracking can be manual or,
yep.
Right,
Right.
so, I would leave the name the same and change the sentence to say a type of GSES where the collector moves and then add in, or can be moved manually in order to track the
Could
sun.
you say it could be adjusted manually? Because then
Sure,
that means you're
sure,
not
right.
picking it up and
Right.
moving it,
Yep,
just adjust.
So how do you say that? Moves or what?
Ground mounted tracking solar.
Or can be adjusted manually.
yep, I like it.
Where does that come in after?
After moves,
Yep,
Or can be what?
adjusted manually.
Moves
All right. So, all right, I mean, we've
Yep.
made a lot of progress here, but everybody do their own finished version
Okay.
for next time.
The next sound you hear,
Um,
it's,
So, let
When are
me
you
just,
leaving?
I am leaving, my last day will be the Tuesday, the 26th.
26th, okay.
Tuesday the 26th, and you'll be away for how long?
I'll be back, the following Tuesday, so,
A week.
Yeah,
yeah.
so you missed the 28th.
And then we
Okay.
have,
So if we got these to you by the Friday before, can you send them all out?
Friday before is the 22nd, I won't be here.
Okay, what about the 21st?
21st, I will be here.
okay,
So
so,
get them to you by the 21st.
And it's a busy month, my truck has to go in for an inspection.
uh-oh.
Okay.
Yeah, it needs tires and probably many other things, so.
Okay, so we get them to you by the 21st, and then you can distribute them,
Yep.
to all of us,
yep, so we don't violate right to know.
right.
And we don't have anything else.
There's nothing else scheduled. I've tried very hard to make sure that, because you guys really beat up on applicants when I'm not here.
Oh, yeah. All right, so this owl is on loan or
It is
what's-
on loan from the
Yes.
school district, he has to go back tonight or tomorrow morning, Eric's.
And then we would bring it back?
Can you bring it back on that day?
The day of the next meeting,
Yeah,
in 2 weeks.
28th.
Yeah, anybody can. They're-
But
it's
they trust
available-
you.
What's that?
They
No,
trust
anybody can do it.
Okay.
Well,
And I am going to,
Would you do it?
I can do it.
Thank you.
Rich, have you been able to follow along fairly easily with,
Yes, it's much better being able to see and I think I can hear better too.
okay. Because this is also a test to see if we definitely want to purchase one, and if the board is happy with, and like I say, you're the one that's out there listening, so if people are happy, then I'm gonna, I have to push the select board hard. I've gotten, we can probably fit that in somewhere in our budget, and we'll think about it, and
So
I just need to push hard.
Would you like us to write something?
No, I think I get them on board, it's just a matter of, it's budget season, Dina's very busy trying to get her to actually order it. I may just ask for the credit card and order it and say, hey, I put it on the credit card.
Hey, David, it's easier for you
So
to
we-
have your own rather than borrow the one.
Oh,
from-
absolutely.
We have it
because-
here, well, maybe you don't even have to pick it up, assuming, would you get it before you left?
Probably not, I can't guarantee that.
Yeah.
It's, I'm gonna push hard, but,
Right, I mean, this is a good investment for the town. to have one
Absolutely.
here.
I don't think
Yeah,
there's
I
any
mean,
doubt about
In
it.
some ways, I see it getting used in this building more than at
I
school.
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
well, it
Sure.
was purchased,
It should just
you
stay
know, the
here
Lyme
and the school should
Foundation
take it.
funded the whole purchase.
Ah.
School didn't spend a cent on that, except
Mhm.
for maybe postage, I'm not sure.
Maybe it should stay here, the school can take it when they borrow, when they need
Well,
it.
I mean,
well,
we
no,
should
it was,
have
it was
redundancy.
granted to the school, so
yeah.
it's school property.
I think there should be one here, you know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
There should definitely be.
I tried to get them to also get a projector to project up onto the whiteboard.
Those are a
And
lot more
I think
expensive.
given that, you know, ever since COVID, I mean, not that we had the biggest crowds here, but we had some turnouts and some good turnouts, but ever since COVID, it's really been terrible, so I think we need to have it.
A projector, I think, you know, something like what we just did, if we had, you know, if I had this computer with internet and projector, we'd be done with what just happened, because I could have typed it up, we all could have looked at it.
Right.
And that would be that.
Right.
And the other thing is, I've been getting a lot of, because of COVID, I got a lot of the plans electronically. I've now gotten people trained to do things electronically. And so if there's a subdivision, having it up on the board, not only for the board to see, but for anybody in the public, so they're not all trying to, you know, hold maps on their lap. But the select board said, well, what about a smart board? What about a TV instead? And it just, you know, everyone had their preference and trying to get one.
Well, TV's pretty small now, I guess, what, are you talking about a big TV?
Yeah, I mean, a projector screen, a big projector screen is $100.
Well,
And-
we're looking at about 800 for what, I would like one that's mounted up
Yep.
in the ceiling,
Yeah.
right up here.
Right.
Wi-Fi enabled so that there is no cords to lose, no cords. And I have an Apple, I have a PC, we don't have the right cord to
Yep.
get, and everyone, and then there are cords dangling down. It just, I
Yeah,
don't like that.
we need to come into the modern age.
Well,
Well-
there's also the smart boards have speakers built in, so
Hmm.
for people who might not hear as well, you know, there are those. And those speakers, you can also get remote speakers.
Well,
for-
if
for
we need
remote-
more my PC, I have Bluetooth, I can put,
Right.
I can
Okay.
attach to
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Bluetooth
yeah,
speakers,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they're relatively inexpensive.
Mhm. And
I have
that's
them all
all.
over my house.
Yeah.
Popcorn, we get popcorn and homework.
I can go to Lyme Hardware and borrow their machine and,
We don't get COVID, no, that's not.
no, I'm sorry, I believe in technology, it helps, and I'm trying to,
Yes.
I've been trying very hard to.
I think we're all on the same page.
Bring-
Great.
Yep.
There's no resistance.
Right.
A couple of things, I saw Hanover's press release, you know, it was in Daybreak about their,
Community aggregation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I was wondering whether, you know, we're gonna be moving on to, commercial and, what's that other term? Net metering stuff. Whether we might identify sites in Lyme that would lend themselves to,
I think
the
that's a really good idea
sort
for
of
the energy
treatment.
committee to take a look. Because that's
Well-
what inform us in terms of zoning districts where we might wanna have.
Well,
certain
exactly, I mean, I think we
properties.
wanna have that information so that if we wanna create a zoning district defined not by, necessarily by geography, but by applicability, we need that information.
So you want an overlay district to,
Possibly,
yeah. Well,
What's an
that's
overlay district?
an overlay district can go anywhere that would be certain criteria. So, I mean, in fact, like, our conservation districts are really overlay districts, because, like, say, the wetlands. There you have the wetlands, and you have this set of underlying things, you know, in the R district, but then the wetlands is an overlay, which
Huh.
puts
so
more
it's not a
restrictions.
specific geographical area, all the wetlands don't end up in the same place.
Right,
So
So
the
this-
Route 10 corridor could be an overlay district and some of it's in.
Well, that would actually be geographical, not really.
But I mean, that too could be
it
an
could
overlay.
be, say,
Yeah.
a lot that well, I don't wanna take all the ones without frontage, but it could be any area setback of 200 feet from a town road. That could be like,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, so, I mean, it's what I think it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
and sometimes they're like, overlay districts can't be located, so one can be established, and then, they did this with like affordable housing in some towns, but the next one has to be a quarter mile away. In fact, I think that was in our zoning ordinance for a while, so, so it's where a certain set of circumstances occur.
So,
It's not necessarily contiguous, like
So
a
it-
district is.
yeah,
I missed what you said at the Hanover put out a press release about what?
about their solar, they have a large municipal solar array.
Oh, that just got turned on today,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
So,
Cool. Okay.
I was thinking, two levels is, we can certainly encourage the town, I mean, we can't do it, but we can encourage the town to do what Hanover did. But getting back to what the other angle is, if we're gonna do some sort of, if we're gonna identify places that we think are good for commercial applications or larger applications, or, I keep forgetting the term.
Net metering.
Net meter, thank you. We need to identify them, and in order to identify them, we should probably come up with some criteria.
Well, that's a technical thing, it has to do with like what kind of power lines you have, where, because you need to have the three-phase power lines. And that was a.
Well, that's one part,
That is one part.
that's just one part.
That is one
That's a
part,
limiting
but I really think that and it's hugely limiting, that the energy committee, that's a great exercise for them to evaluate, and keeps us out, and we get a recommendation from them about locations in town that would be suitable. And we, in terms of definitions, is suitable, I mean, it probably means they need to go and say, well, there's not a conservation easement there that would prevent that from happening, so they need to do a little research. And that there's, I would say, even if there are limitations, like we know there are wetlands on that property, but that's a possibility because of its proximity to the three-phase power lines. That's possible, we can put, there's some amount of disturbance that's allowed, so, for structures and.
Well, I think it'd be helpful if we're going to ask the Energy Committee to do that we at least provide some guidance. Otherwise, we could end up being,
Otherwise, they do a bunch of work and then we say,
And-
nah, no, that was wrong.
I don't wanna just tell them, go out there and look what, we need to
Right.
give them some guidance.
A whole bunch of tools for calculating, what you can get for sunshine in an area based on elevation models. I was just looking, one of the programs I have has all of those tools written in, so.
Well, that's what they come and do at your house when they site your,
Right.
they look at the suitability of your roof for solar, and they go, that tree, and that tree need to go away,
Yeah.
so that
Yes.
you can get production, so we can't be that site,
Well, we can,
specific.
without trees, without, based on ground terrain,
Yeah.
I can do these calculations.
Well, it's also true, if we're looking for something that would be suitable for net metering, we wouldn't be looking at a quarter-acre lot or even a 2-acre lot where the tree there and there are gonna hinder something. I mean, presumably it's a much larger.
We'd be looking for sites that lend themselves
Right,
to it.
but I mean, presumably they would have, oh, that's interesting, would you cut down trees? Whoa,
Yeah, that's.
Well,
Right.
well, on that note,
okay.
Yes, of
on
course
that
we do.
note, I
We do cut down trees.
read a great article that's by somebody named Mark Whitworth to the Valley News.
Mhm.
And it's Vermont climate efforts must preserve biodiversity. I've been trying to articulate this and I haven't done a good job. David, would people be willing, okay if David sends you all this
Yeah, so is it about wind turbines and birds?
No, it's not just about that, it's that, you know, everything is focused on, sort of one side of the equation. I mean, I think what we're doing with the solar stuff is necessary and great. But it's biodiversity and functional niches within the ecology are, you can cover the earth in solar panels, and if you don't have a functional biodiversity, you're dead. So this guy uses an example of what happened in, you know, we live in one of the few remaining massive forest areas in the world, extending from, you know, where we are way up north. And they ended up, and fragmentation of these areas is really, really damaging. And they ended up cutting down all of this forest to, I guess this was a turbine complex in Lowell.
Yep.
And
Vermont.
in exchange for the promoter's promise of 74,000 tons of CO2, the amount of carbon produced by New York City in less than half a day, this irreplaceable part was given up. And it's not that we shouldn't have these things, but where we put them really matters. So anyway, I think this is a good article if people are willing to have it sent to them, or you can always put it in your garbage.
Right.
So would you send that to
Yep.
me?
Well, if it comes electronically, we don't have to, oh, we put it in that trash.
In that trash.
Okay.
That's right, you can push the bits over to the side.
And there was an article in the New York Times about this, not this specifically, but also about the biodiversity emergency being addressed at the United Nations now.
Well, did anybody see the Earth Day a year ago? They put out a film and talked about the damage and kind of inhumane treatment of the workers in mines that are producing the metals that you need to use for solar panels.
Of course, I mean,
And then the whole concept of solar farms being abandoned and just sitting there out in Nevada or wherever they were, you know, like a graveyard of solar.
exactly.
You know, trackers. And that was disgusting, and then in terms of waste, it's really bad. So, you know, one of the things I really want, if somebody creates a solar farm, is that they need to, it's just like a communications tower, there needs to be a fund set aside
To
for
take it down.
removal of it and disposal of
Absolutely.
it in whatever is the way that's most appropriate later. And I mean, you almost think like unless you attend to the ecology thing, and we go off on this other, you know, you're missing the point. You know, trying to address the energy things if our whole natural systems.
Is collapsing.
Well,
I
they
mean,
are
it's collapsing.
There's too many people.
Well, it's not, you know, I don't know, obviously, it would be easier with less people, but I'm not sure it's only that there's, you know, the population issue, it's how we do things.
Yeah, agreed. John, I wanted to say something.
Do you wanted to say something? That is outrageous.
We talked a while ago about the fire station and solar panels on the fire station. So I talked to Mike Mundy about that. His explanation was, when he was raising money, when they were raising money for the fire station, he knew that they couldn't really raise enough money for both to build a building and to do solar panels at the same time. But they planned for solar panels on the roof, and they actually built it, they moved one of the towers and all that. So
Yeah, I heard that.
So he said that David Roby is putting solar panels on the fire station. They're gonna cover most of it, and he said it's gonna be great because the fire station doesn't use too much electricity, but.
Oh, yes,
because
it
they're-
does.
Well, he said they don't use that much. He said that they'll produce a lot more than what they use, so then they're gonna
Their
just put it
current
in.
bill
What?
for the new station is running about $400 a month.
But anyway.
That's from the electric bills.
Well, that's what you do.
Anyway, his
is
point
you
was
convert
that,
so that you're solar ready and
Right.
then make your own power so that you are not doing fossil fuels.
well, anyway, he was telling me that he thought they were gonna generate a lot more than what the fire station would use, so that would go and it would pay for the, town garage and all that, you know, it could go into the other ones.
There's a lot of hidden power in that station. You have all the battery maintainers on the trucks to keep the truck batteries charged, which we want, absolutely. There's the radio equipment. They have repeaters in there that are fairly high power, that are running 24/7. If you look at the radio rack in the back room, it's a lot of equipment that runs.
Yeah, but at any rate, that's what's gonna happen, so. so
That's
David's paying-
fantastic news.
David's buying, I guess, panels for the whole bill, for the whole roof, and,
Well, many thanks to that, that's fantastic for
Absolutely.
everybody.
yeah, so it's coming.
Great.
Super.
So
So,
Rich, Mengy has a question.
Rich,
I just had a couple comments. I was wondering for our next meeting and other upcoming meetings, whether, or maybe the question is, has anybody been in touch with the Energy Committee to let them know what we're doing so we can maybe get their input concurrently with what we're doing so that
I will email Jim Nurse. He does know that we are writing zoning amendments, but I'll remind him.
because I think it would be helpful to get their input and also to, let them know that we're just doing a few baby steps right now and, we're not tackling the whole
Sure.
issue.
Good idea.
Seems like it might be helpful. I
Yeah,
guess the
and
question,
Mark Bollinger was here and we asked him, if he or somebody might attend these meetings, so they definitely know about it, but I will remind them and address those issues.
okay, the second question I had, or just comment was, so given, now that I have a better appreciation of the difference between a building footprint and lot coverage, so just a thought in terms of how David is going to, or how one would differentiate between the maximum footprint of, what is the footprint of a large conglomeration of panels? You see these driving up and down the interstate in Vermont, where they seemingly follow the contours of a field, and yet they're not necessarily physically interconnected except by power. So how do you figure the size of one of these things? I mean, if they have 4 feet of space between a panel, is that a different structure, or is it all a conglomeration of solar panels on a site is, that's all of the footprint is one footprint, one building?
If I had to make a decision, I would look at the structure that they're on. Are the individual panels interconnected with structural features? I mean, it's basically steel or aluminum racks that are running. And then I would consider the aluminum racks to be the structure and the panels to be part of that. If they are individual ones that are separated, then I would consider them individual and count them each as their own structure.
Because I think there might be some cause for us to reconsider that. I mean, I have two arrays that are 24 panels apiece. and I think they take up, I don't know, 300 square feet or something like that, I don't know what they take up, but, or no, they take up more than that, but, I could certainly, going by that definition, David, I could fill a whole acre field, or a 5 acre field, and the maximum structure size would be 24 panels. And I'm not sure that that's really what we're wanting to do, even for a small residential, even for a residential parcel.
Well, don't the conservation districts still apply?
Yes,
So you'd be limited if you're on ag soil, Rich.
Up to 20.
And,
Yeah.
and, you know, same goes for all of our conservation districts, but, I mean, if they have, you know, the area and they're not inhibited because they're special because of their natural resource status, is there a problem?
I don't know, I mean, I guess I'm looking at my arrays that take up 1,400 square feet. And looking at the project that we approved last meeting, if they're allowed 18,000 square feet as the maximum lot coverage, they could do something 10 times my size, plus build a 3,000 square foot house. And that's on a 7.5 acre parcel.
yep. But that's, you know, currently under the zoning. That could also be taken up by sheds and garages,
Don't forget my tennis
or
court.
tennis courts, you know, so there is, you know, and we've talked about this in the past about, you know, kind of the fairness of the zoning being fair to all types of structures.
Yep.
So you're saying all these things take up space, so it doesn't matter what you're building to take up the space. This is how much space you have, and these are the things you can build.
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking something that's using 10 or 20 times what a normal house would have for requirement. I think we're starting to get into solar farming, small scale solar farming, or we're actually getting into community solar.
Well, I mean, this is consistent with your earlier concern, which I understand, which is, you know, why the on-site definition was in there. Because you are gonna end up in some circumstances, I imagine, with that situation.
You know, guys, the payback isn't that great
On
Yeah.
what?
on solar.
Right,
Right,
So nobody's gonna like start throwing money into, I mean, unless you're really a solar fan, just like you have an electric train set that's really big in your garage, and wanna do that for the world. I mean,
Mhm.
it just, the payback does not come very quickly, and so it's gotta be a good natured. I don't think that that's an issue. I have a feeling if we get into that situation and we find that that's happening across town and it's undesirable for some reason, then we can change our regulations. But I'm not convinced that that's a big problem, and, you know, in a way, God bless that person if they wanna, instead of building sheds and tennis courts, wanna put in solar, you know, I'm happy that they wanna do that.
It's very interesting, being from Vermont, those solar systems that you see all over the state. We have several in Fairleigh, and I've been approached by the companies that put them in, asking if I wanted to buy into those systems. And as soon as I started asking questions, they seemed very disinterested in having me become a participant. I know enough about the payback and started asking those types of questions. And they were like, yeah, you may not be the right person for this, and they closed the door and walked away.
so, that's a good point, Vicki. I also think it's unlikely to be a problem. I think I got another question out of another thought out of your question, Rich. You say you have two, I think I understood you to say you have two racks of 24 panels that,
24 on each, yeah.
that run parallel to each other.
The one's in front of the other,
Yeah, right, so they're, you know, one's like this and the other one's like
correct.
that, yeah, and they go that way. Are they one structure? I mean, this is something we wanna understand in our ordinance. Are they a single structure? How?
Didn't David just answer
Said
that?
no.
If
I
they're,
think David's definition would be they are two structures.
yeah, because they're not interconnected, they're not,
Okay,
they're
so
not, there's no physical.
there's no physical connection
Connection.
between them, so they're not, all right.
It's like if somebody has a house and a garage, they're two
Mhm.
separate buildings. If you
Right.
build a breezeway between them, now you have one building.
Yep, yep.
Right, but they can still be connected by conduit and.
Conduit electric
Yeah.
connection.
And
Yeah,
that's the
okay.
same thing, you know, if you have a
Okay.
garage, you can
All right.
connect it,
Right,
power
you
to
have
it.
a switch
I
in
don't-
your house.
So we're okay with that?
Yep.
Yep.
I have no issues with that at all.
And that also,
And it goes back to the lot coverage that, you know, you do have a limited amount of lot coverage, and once you hit that number with your individual structures,
Right.
you're there, then
right,
you go no bigger.
Oh, incidentally, I wanted to thank you, Vicki, for sending all that information about lot coverage.
Well, just
That was-
it's
that was
the impacts on
very good.
the watershed.
Very good, very important.
I have a question that I probably should know the answer to, but in New Hampshire, the utilities don't pay you for the electricity, they just give you credit, is that correct?
True,
No, they pay you.
They pay you.
I get credit.
It depends on your.
So in other words,
it
let's
depends
say
on
you.
On your power company.
Okay, but let's say you get paid for it,
yeah.
so then why wouldn't people put up 4 times as much?
I believe you're
Generate
getting
4
paid at
times as much as what
the,
they use and just get checks every, all year.
but aren't you being paid at the wholesale rate, not at a retail rate? So you're
So you're not making much.
not making a whole lot of money.
So, because that's really my question, is whether.
The incentive,
the
you're talking about the
incentive- I'm talking about the
incentivation.
incentive, yeah, so it doesn't sound like people are gonna just put up a whole bunch of solar panels to make money.
You're not gonna become a millionaire by putting up.
Right, and the
solar
payback
panels.
will be years and years and years.
No, what I do is I think, okay, we give Sierra Club $15,000-$20,000, or I could put up solar panels on my roof. You know, it's like, cause they're advocates and they work for this and that, and it's just like, it's doing something rather than complaining about our, dire climate crisis kind of thing. So,
Right.
that's what I've done, and, right now, I have this plug-in vehicle, and I'm paying electric bills for the first time, and I'm kind of PO'd, I need more panels.
Mhm.
Because, it was sized for me, in this little house, and, I don't wanna pay the power company, I don't like them, so,
But plus it depends where the electricity's being generated, how it's being
How it's
generated.
being generated.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause Eversource is not that great, it's, what is it, 50% is
Yes,
fossil
yes,
fuels, so
yep.
it's not great.
yep, and this valley fog does not help. I don't get sun until 11:30,
Right.
and so it's been, even though we've had lots of sunny days, afternoon.
You just put on your sun lamp.
I know. I got a propane fired sun lamp, right, that'll help my electrical generation, yeah.
Ladies, no, what was it, gentle persons, it is
Witching hour.
11 of 9, would people like to,
We can go home and work on our assignments.
yes, would people like to go home and work on their assignment? I'd like to make a motion to put us out of our misery, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? David, this is for you.
Thank you. I will put it away for the next time.
All right.
Have a
Thank you very
glorious
much.
vacation.
Yeah.